Welcome. Today we're going to talk about Curse Scroll 6 City of Masks. Curse Scroll 6 is the latest release from ShadowDark. It's part of the Western Reaches Kickstarter, and a digital copy of the zine has been released to the backers. Now, each Curse Scroll is its own region that will eventually be part of the Western Reaches. They add some variant character classes, some new gameplay elements, and then each one features some kind of adventure location. Most of them, it's been a hex crawl paired up with a dungeon, but this one, the region is a city, an entire city. It's the eponymous City of Masks. So stick with me. We'll look at the gameplay elements first, talk about what makes cities good, but then also difficult to present in an RPG, and we'll see how City of Masks measures up. Welcome to my channel. I'm John. All right, let's dive into today's review, Curse Scroll 6, City of Masks. Now, so you guys can see what I'm seeing, I'm going to switch over to my screen. Okay, the first class we're going to take a look at is the Bard. This is very much a throwback to the literary Bard. Like when I was growing up, I read some fantasy fiction by Lloyd Alexander, The Chronicles of Prydain. It features a famous fantasy bard, Fluther Flan. That's what this kind of reminds me of. I've had a bard in my home campaign for well over a year, so I've got to see the class up front, close in the hands of a player. We're doing Curse of Strahd in that campaign, and there's a lot of interaction with NPCs and nobles and factions and negotiation situations. The bard's great and definitely carries their own weight. And then I've run a couple convention games. I've run some in the winter. Recently was at PAX Unplugged. We had bards. And in a dungeon crawl in a convention setting, the bard's not great. It's not necessarily a powerful dungeon crawling class. So I think this one's going to be a little campaign specific. He gets lots of oratory abilities. Fascinate is fantastic in social settings. They're a little bit of a luck machine. But I think in a dungeon-heavy campaign, you really want to lean into that wand power, where they can either use wands that they find or find a wand in lieu of one of their talents. I also think in a small group, like this opens up some interesting options. If you don't have a priest, a bard with a wand of cure wounds could easily be a stand-in healer. So I really like the bard a lot. It might not fit every campaign. The next class, the Duelist. This really seems to fit the flavor for the City of Masks. You'll see that it has sort of a fantasy Venice quality to it. You know, that sort of high medieval, early Renaissance quality where a Three Musketeers or Errol Flynn style swashbuckler would fit right in. This class balances fighting with some charisma abilities. It's evasive. Its taunt ability allows it to hit well with advantage. Doesn't do a lot of damage. So again, I feel like in the mid-levels, the player might not feel as impactful as a fighter in a dungeon-heavy campaign, but it certainly belongs here in more of an urban setting or a city-based campaign because of the charisma stuff. The next gameplay element this one adds is something called Renown. When I was looking at this, it reminded me of Honor back in the 1980s when Oriental Adventures for AD&D First Edition first came out. OA had this attribute called Honor, which represented reputation to some degree. And it was like a dynamic attribute that would go up and down based on what the character does. And that's how this Renown feels like to me. It's really well integrated into the rules of the city. We're going to see it come up again and again. The idea is that Renown can modify reaction rolls in an urban setting or a setting where the player's reputations can precede them. It's going to continually go up as they level up, but it could go down based on some of their deeds. So I like it. I'm going to start using this in my campaigns. I think it's a way to translate dungeon success into popularity. I'll give you an example. In one of my home campaigns, we just finished B5 Horror on the Hill recently. The players killed a dragon at the end of it. It was a huge accomplishment. Using these rules, They would have gained a renown when they gained a level. They did something like wildly successful. They had a great triumph. They'd get a renowned. And they were sent to go visit the Duke where they had a public audience. They would get a renown for that as well. I think most of the characters by now would be in that 4 to 7 range for renown. And maybe the high charisma guy might even be at 8. And then this would be really useful when they go into cities. The next thing we're going to take a look at are lawful alignment-based wizard spells. So Curse Scroll 4 introduced the idea of neutral spells. Now we get the lawful ones for the mage. Just looking at this page, there's a few interesting ones. Abjure is a level 5 spell, so you could get it as a level 9 wizard. The wizard dies, but it kills whatever he's touching. I immediately think of like Gandalf fighting the Balrog. I threw down my enemy and smote his ruin upon the mountainside, and then he croaked. So it's a bit of a heroic sacrifice type spell, but maybe there's like some 30th level epic threat, and this is how your wizard wants to go out. Anyway, it's pretty interesting. The spell on this page that I think is going to be a staple for lawful wizards starting as early as level 1 is going to be Flare. It sets up almost a stun lock situation. The players get into a fight, the wizard casts Flare, all the orcs are blinded. They have disadvantage, the players have advantage, so it's a huge like controller type benefit for the whole party. And it lasts until the wizard goes, and then he can try to cast Flare again. I think this is going to be really, really helpful in combat. So we get new spells here for your lawful wizards. The next thing we get are downtime options. Now, downtime are those things players typically would do in between adventures. This is how we introduce training into the campaign setting, magical research, things like how do you create a potion or a scroll or a wand or a potion of healing if you're a clerical type. Thieves can go off and do skullduggery stuff. This is a great boon for long-term campaigns. And the way the downtime works, which I think is really smart, the difficult ones, if you fail your downtime check, it's a project. You can try again next time you're in between adventures and you get another downtime check, but the difficulty goes down each time. So if you're trying to create a wand, it might take a while, but eventually it's going to keep getting easier till you exceed on your roll. So you're not really wasting that time. It's just an investment towards completing your project. I really like these. It's also a bit of a money drain. I think it's going to really help give ShadowDark a campaign feel to it. And as we'll see later in City of Masks, the downtime's really well integrated into the setting here. The one watch out is, what is the definition of between adventures? Right? It says in between adventures, players can get a downtime. And I don't know yet. It's left up for the individual referee. We play short sessions and the players don't always leave the dungeon. Sometimes, we'll just freeze and pick up there next week. So that's not in between adventures. Maybe it's every time you return to town, after a major jaunt. I don't know. Still an open question. I think each of us is going to need to figure that out for our own campaigns. Next, we get expanded carousing. Carousing first showed up in the core rules for ShadowDark as, the first kind of downtime. You'd return to town with money, spend it at the bar, make some rolls, gain experience for carousing, and then some funny things might happen. Well, this greatly expands the carousing tables. It takes into account renown. So your renown will improve your carousing. There are things like holidays, bards can add to it. And so the table on the right is expanded all the way up to 25. This means that renown will scale throughout the entire game. One of the things players noticed in the core rules was that by the time you got to the mid-levels, the benefits you were getting for renown, the benefits you were getting for carousing, weren't necessarily worth the investment of the downtime. Well, here are the experience totals. They scale a lot with the player's renown and their level, so it could be worth carousing even into the late game. The other thing you'll notice is that there are now both benefits and mishaps that can happen depending on the role, so that there's a lot more variability with the carousing tables. And if we take a quick look, there are 4 pages of benefits now from 0, 1 all the way up to 100, and 4 pages of mishaps from 0, 1 to 100. We'll have I think that they won't get stale quite so fast. We're now at the city section. Cities have a really interesting place in RPGs. If you think back to your favorite setting, I'm sure you can name like the principal city of the setting. If you're a Forgotten Realmsian, maybe it's Waterdeep or Baldur's Gate. For me, I always think of the free city of Greyhawk or Specularum, the capital of Karameikos in the known world. For the real old timers, you got the city-state of the Invincible Overlord, which was part of Judge's Guild, Wilderlands of high fantasy in the 1970s. There was Lankmar in the 80s, the literary city for Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser. It seemed like there was a lot of stuff out there for Freeport, a pirate city from Green Ronin. And if you think about what cities are good for in your campaign, right, there's a couple different things we want out of our cities. Players, they want to go and get patrons, learn about quests. Maybe they're part of factions or groups or NPCs that they want to interact with that are in the cities. Obviously, in between adventures, you want to buy stuff, you want to go train. If you want to start a project, like what we'd call a downtime activity nowadays, in the past, it would be like, I need to find a scroll or write a scroll or start making a magic item. Many times that would happen in a city. And sometimes the cities themselves are the adventure destinations, right? There's a ruin in the city or the sewers or, I don't know, a headquarters or hideout that you need to break into. And when you think about what makes a good city presentation, there's some dynamic tension there because you want flavor and culture and lore, but you really don't want too much because you need usability. I think frequently cities in the past, like when you're reading about cities that came out in the 1980s, it was lore overkill. You do want some specific locations with details, though. You want to be able to get adventure inspirations by reading about the city and its places. Cities are big, so there should be different districts or neighborhoods that give it a different feel to it. There's way too much to describe, so you need random tables for encounters and what's going on in the city. And lastly, you got to have some quality maps. Let's take a second and look at the maps for Meridia, the city of masks. You can see the city is at the confluence of a couple different rivers. There's land to the north and then to the east of the city. The west and south looks like it opens out onto the ocean. The rivers give it almost like a canal vibe too, and rowers and boats and things like that. They don't really call them gondolas, but rowing around the city definitely plays a part. It's described as the city of intrigue with masked factions, pride and romance. Costumes play a big part of the city. It's ruled by a duke, which to me implies that somewhere there's a king, because why wouldn't the duke call himself the king? So it's got to be part of a larger kingdom. And again, it really comes across almost like an Italian city of some quality. I kept flashing on Fantasy Venice. Here's the text overview of the city where we get some notes on all the different districts that are in there and some guidance on how players can move around the city and the frequency of encounter checks. It's all good, flavorful stuff. There are factions here. There's 4 major factions. The Bardic College and the Duke are kind of on the same side against the Shroud, which is trying to undermine the Duke, and the Shroud are this kind of secretive mass society. And then you've got the House of Seren, which is a thieves guild. I really like the factions. I think it brings a dynamic element of intrigue into this particular city. And then there are several minor factions as well. Now, players, being who they are, will cause trouble. And so you've got to know how law and order is going to work in the city. And having some holidays is a really nice touch. Anyone who's seen some of my real old videos here, I say old, been on YouTube less than a year, but some of my older videos, I'm a big proponent of using a calendar. Like the calendar is a really important campaign artifact to track time, keep track of what the players are doing, track weather, and track what enemy factions and other groups are doing, so that all these events happening in the campaign are time bound. And I love holidays. It's a great way to mark time. I don't think 4 of them is nearly enough. So we'd have to flesh out our calendar with more. But this is a great start. And as you look at them, you can see that they talk about things like carousing. They talk about costumes. It really ties into some of the vibes and theme of the city. We've got rumors, of course. And let's take a look at a couple locations in one of the quarters. In fact, this is such a good representation of everything you get in the 30 or so pages that describe the City of Masks. So this district is called Gedgarrin because it's where the Mage's College is. The college is called Gedgarrin. So let's take a look at number 4, Gedgarrin. We hear that the college has 7 towers. There's a headmaster and 6 other professors. So you imagine that each one of these must be an archmage who has his own tower. There is a Professor Malin, who is secretly working with the Shroud to undermine the headmaster. And we learn about that players who are friends of the college once a month can use the libraries there to do research and get an advantage on a magical downtime check. So the downtime connection actually is huge. Having an advantage on those checks is going to be really valuable to players. Think about it, like in this brief description, we get connections to factions, adventure ideas. You can imagine if the players are friends with the headmaster, at some point he'd be like, I think there's a spy somewhere here on the college trying to undermine me. And it also is a destination that the players are going to seek out, because getting advantage on your magical research would actually be huge in the context of the downtime. Now, a referee would need to or want to flesh this out, maybe describe more about the college and things like that, depending on how important it is for your particular campaign. But as a single location, I think this really strikes a good balance of being flavorable, actionable, tying to the themes of the city, inspiring adventure, and giving players a reason to visit for downtime. Let's take a look at a couple more of these. Number 3, Monveau Theater. Bertrand, he's been spending too much time in the dungeons or the tunnels underneath the theater. He found an eldritch book. It's made him crazy. And now he's going to put on a play that will summon an eldritch horror. How many Cthulhu players are out there? He's written The King in Yellow, and now he's going to open a portal to Carcosa and bring madness to the City of Masks. What a great little description with nods to other games and themes. Anyway, I love that place. Let's jump over to number 1, Flashing Steel. We get an elf who teaches swordplay. You skip to the bottom, you can see that this is a place that players would want to seek out during their downtime because they get advantage on their martial training checks. This can improve your bow fighters or your finesse weapons. Good. But then you realize rumors stir that the rival school, Tiborians, wants to attack. How hilarious is that? Here we are in this fantasy city, and we've got Cobra Kai against Miyagi-Do. Whose fighting school is the best? That cracks me up. I think it just speaks to the kind of zany adventures we could have in this setting, where you've got, like I said, you've got Cobra Kai out there. What is it? Strike first, strike hard, no mercy. And the elf is like, I think they're going to attack our peaceful little school. These little brief capsules just do a really good job of inspiring some ideas for adventure, and then tying into themes we see elsewhere in the book, whether it's carousing or the downtime activities, and become destinations that the players are going to seek out. I think it's really well done. So based on the rubric I kind of laid out earlier, I'm only going to look at this one page. There's like 7 or 8 different districts, and each of them is done very similar with the same kind of locations that really speak to the themes of the city. They invite players to come find them for benefits during carousing or downtime. And then once you're lured in, you're going to inevitably get connected to these adventure ideas. I think this really does a good job of giving patrons and quest ideas, places for the players to buy or train or do their downtime, and really hits the mark on that balance we need between flavor and lore and usability. This is a really well done city. I think gaps wise, like if I were trying to put on my critic's hat, one thing you notice when we're looking at Gedgarrin, there's no NPC stats. In some cases, we don't even get ideas of like who they could be, right? So there's a headmaster of the Wizards College, but all we get is their name. So that could be fleshed out a little more. We'd probably have to go into the rule book and decide, is this person an archmage, for instance? And because those like 2-page districts are so tight on space, where we get the map and then the description of the district, there's no room for art in there either for NPCs. I would say those are minor quibbles for what we get, but if I thought critically, that's what I could find. I find myself really impressed with the author's style here, Kelsey Dion. It's so difficult to be succinct but evocative. It takes a lot of hard work, and cities are difficult. I think that this one really does hit that mark of the trade-off we need between lore and interesting adventure inspiration and accessibility. So my verdict, this one is very well done. It's useful, gameable content and very well integrated with ShadowDark's downtime and Renown systems. I was thinking about it. So I've got 2 campaigns going right now. Curse of Strahd should be over in the spring. I'm hopeful that by the time the Western Reaches comes out, like the finished product, that 1 or 2 of these campaigns I'm running now are wrapped up. Because the more I see, the more excited I am about possibly running one of my own campaigns there. So I'll put a link down below where you can get this. I think people are still pledging for the Kickstarter Western Reaches, and then the moment they do, these digital copies of things that have already been released, Curse Scroll 4 and Curse Scroll 6 are being made available to backers. I think that's how it's going to continue to go, that as things sort of come off the press, we're going to get the digital copies right away. So Curse Scroll 5 should be coming pretty soon. The project does seem to be a few months behind schedule, but like I said, I'm fine. I've got these in-flight campaigns keeping me busy anyway, and in the meantime, as we get this new gaming content, I'm just integrating it into my current campaigns. If you made it this far, thank you. Please consider subscribing to my channel. It really helps. Okay, here's a nerd aside. I recently integrated an eGPU into my laptop. I was recording on my laptop, felt it was a little choppy. So if my video quality has changed and any of you notice, let me know. This is an experiment. Otherwise, see everyone next time.